Okay, here we are again, Joe. Last time we were together, you and I, we were talking about, or you were talking about your experiences of working in the Dartown Cemetery as a lad of 15, I believe. You were still in high school and were about to launch into your work career. And so I thought maybe that'd be a good subject to ask you about today. Looking back on your life and your different work experiences, just, if you will, take us through that. I know you have lots of good stories. You always do.
Well, let me tell you, back in 1961, I was a senior at Talawanda High School. School was just not my thing, unfortunately. So I was 18 years old and I guess I was having a bad day. Came from a poor family. We unfortunately didn't have much back then. So I walked out of my classroom to leave school, walked down the hallway, saw Mr. Rudolph, who was our principal, and I asked him, I said, Mr. Rudolph, what do you have to do to quit school? And he said, well, quit coming. So I walked out the door. Didn't go back in that building for 20 years, but here I was walking out into the parking lot, got into my old car, and I thought, boy, I've got to go to the Dartown Cemetery because that was the only job I had. So then I got to thinking, I need to do something else. I need to advance myself, get out of this cemetery work. And I noticed out on Shalombarger Road, a fellow by the name of John Nichols, out in the middle of the field, there was an old pickup truck that hadn't been moved in several years. Weeds growed up. So I asked him about selling it. And he said, well, sure. And I don't recall what I paid him for it, but we took his farm tractor, pulled it out, aired up the tires, got the thing started, and I decided to go into the painting business. Well, when you go into business, you have to have a name. So I decided to name my new business the Dit Dot Paint Company.
Now, Joe, this means you were about 18 years old and you were starting your own business.
Yes, sir. I
All
was
right.
exactly 18 years old. This is October of 1961. So I get the old truck, I put pipe racks on it, and put tool boxes on it. Back then we had to make them out of wood rather than metal like today. And here I was, I'm in the business. My recollection that this old truck was a 1937 Chevrolet. I'd give anything to have that truck today, but it's long gone. So then interesting story. If I can do this quickly, I'm poor, number one. I have absolutely no money. I need to buy ladders, paint brushes, paint, all the necessary stuff that you need to paint. And I go to Oxford Hardware. And two guys by the name of Ernie and Keith Myers were running the place. And I went in there, and they knew me because I was sort of a little rowdy guy around Dartown and Oxford, so everybody knew me. And I go in there and I told these guys that I need some paint equipment. They asked me what I need. I explained to them what I need. And do you know that they gave me everything that I asked for?
You mean gave
And
to you.
well, they didn't. I'm just saying that they put everything down on a payment plan. And I told them, boys, I have no money, but I will pay you back as I earn the money. I'll pay you for all this stuff. So these two guys wrote everything down. Of course, we didn't have computers or anything. They wrote everything down on paper and gave me everything. I took off and my little truck loaded. And as my jobs went, I would go up there and pay them. And I also bought my day-to-day paint from them. So obviously they ended
Yeah.
up with a vested interest in my little Did Dot Paint Company.
It's
So
really,
that,
really great that somebody would step in and help you that way. It's an example of how all of our lives are touched by others and gives us a leg up, if you will. And that's a great story about the Myers brothers.
yes, I was so grateful for those guys to get me started. So then I go back to Dartown and I need some guys because we were not inside painters. We're just kids, 18 years old. So I get Charlie Hansel and Dick Davish, Gary Russell. I just get some other guys up around McGonigal. So we would go out and paint old houses that needed painting bad to begin with. You couldn't hardly mess one up. And we would paint barns. I painted John Brose's barn up on 73. Big and our ladders were 32-foot extension ladders. So they were big, heavy wooden ladders. So that's how I got started in the Dit-Dot Paint Company. And then I gave that up and I went to work for a guy that lived in Dartown across from Luther's filling station by the name of Ben Barber.
Yeah, I remember Ben.
Yeah, and he had bulldozers, backhoes, and a big cable backhoe. We didn't have hydraulic backhoes like we do today. So Ben took me to Fairfield in a place that was being developed called Hicks Manor. It's all there today. And he told me to dig a hole until noon, have lunch, and then backfill the hole. And so I did exactly that. And that's how I got started.
Now wait a minute. You mean it was sort of like a trial run? He didn't need the hole. He just asked you to dig it.
Yes. No, the hole served no purpose other than for him to see if I could do anything.
It was a test.
It was a test. Exactly.
Now I should explain to our viewers that Joe has some sounds in the background there because he's a ham radio operator. You
Yes.
want to take care of that, Joe?
No, that my wife got it. My daughter was
All
calling.
right. Maybe the
So-
house phone. But at another point, we're going to ask Joe to tell us stories about his ham radio days and so on. But to continue with Ben Barber and the hole that you dug and then filled successfully.
Yes. And then after that, every day I became a little bit better at running bulldozers and big loaders and backhoes. And that fella taught me an awful lot that I had learned in all my business adventures later on. It's just amazing how each one of my little jobs and stories just helped me along as life went on.
Yeah. Well, I understand that you also did some work with other construction work, or maybe even asphalt work and so on. Let's take just a couple minutes to, if you will, Joe, to go on through that part of your life. You worked with Stempfli and Ross, and eventually then you started your own company known as Jayco.
Sure. I worked for Hamilton Excavators. I worked for Brochure Contractors. That they were big contractors, put in big sewer lines and water lines in subdivisions. And then I worked for my uncle, a fellow by the name of Charles Stempfli, C.A. Stempfli Paving Contractors out of 7 Mile. And I was a truck driver and a general laborer. And, just being a young fellow, I sort of had several jobs. But mainly I was really involved in excavating. I guess being raised on a farm and helping farmers and plowing and disking, you sort of get turning that dirt over in your blood. And I always kept going back. Then I worked for Frank Ross, another Dartown fella. He was in the excavating business. And it just went on from there, Fred.
I understand. Frank Ross was out of Collinsville, I believe, and then you told me that he lived in Dartown for a while.
Yes, he moved out of the house that Ben Barber lived in across from McVicker's gas station, and then Frank moved in there, and then I worked for Frank for a while. Then after when I left Frank in 1972. Janet and I, my wife, we started Jayco Construction.
And that is another chapter in your life that we'll pursue in another a conversation, if you will. We're going to wrap this up for right now. And I've enjoyed it, and I'm pretty sure our viewers will. So thanks a lot, Joe.
You're certainly welcome. We'll see you next time.
All right.